Welcome back to day 2 of the TCO19 finals. Today we are going to start off with 2 competitions. The first one being the UI design semifinal round 1 and also the algorithm semifinal 1 as well. But for the first 30 minutes, we are going to be covering the UI design challenge. Joining me is Adam Moorhead, aka ACRush.
Thanks, Nick.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So this year, I'm very excited because it seems that we have a different type of UI design competition that is not really for people who do follow the TCO. It's going to be a little different this year.
Yep, definitely,
Can you
definitely.
explain?
Oh yeah. So I decided to switch things up this year. Traditionally at TCO, we do 3-hour design rounds. So about a total of 9 hours for the entire event. So 3 rounds, 3 hours each. I've been traveling and doing design workshops around the world. And part of those workshops, because I don't have the luxury of multiple days, I typically have to do something in one day. And in those workshops, I tend to do these 1-hour rapid user experience challenges. The goal being, like, what is the thought process? What's the thinking going into a designer planning something? And then, of course, what's the decision-making process that they're making when they're creating the different assets? And so in those workshops, I tend to do a wireframe, and a problem, and they have an hour. Now, I know that they have an hour, and I know it's not going to be beautiful, but what are the ideas that they can bring to the paper or to their computer screen, so to speak? How do they essentially convey their thought process quickly?
Right.
And so this year I'm doing that. So I brought that to the finals, and the designers are probably a little surprised and a little freaked out right this minute. But right now they are competing for 1 hour, and we gave them 1 hour. We gave them a wireframe. Now last night we did give them the customer and the initial problem.
Okay. And what is that? What are they thinking through with that? Are they looking at color schemes and stuff like that?
Well, right. So it's like, I'm not worried about branding here. I'm not worried about like them being too concerned about that aspect of it. What I'm focused more on is what's the user experience that they can provide to a specific situation that in this 1 hour.
Okay.
So it's like, don't go design an app in an hour. It's going to be, okay, here's the app, here's the situation, here's the user experience problem we want to solve, and in an hour, what's your thoughts and concepts that you bring? Okay. Visually display your ideas. How fast can you do that? And how well can you do that?
And are RUXs typically 1 hour?
No, so our traditional RUX, I use RUX interchangeably.
Okay.
I'm mostly focused on the rapid user experience part of it, but our traditional RUX is a 72-hour challenge. Okay, it's 3 days. But it's our big event. A lot of our designers in the community jump in. I think a lot of the designers like the 3-day challenges because you don't have to ponder it for 10 days, right? It's like, hey, I have an idea. I'm going to go execute that idea. Now I'm off doing the next thing, right? So today we're doing the 1 hour RUX here right now, and then we're going to go judge, and then we're going to have another 1 hour RUX at 3 p.m., which is going to be our round 2. Okay. The other unique thing that we're doing this year, and this is the big surprise, is traditionally we judge all of the designers essentially 1 through 12. Like who's first, who's second, who's third, who's fourth, who's fifth, right?
Okay. So
as we judge, we're evaluating, okay, who fits in the middle, who's actually bubbling up to the top. Well, this year I threw a twist in, and we're doing it essentially a tournament battle style. So design battles. So right now, all 11 designers, they're not competing in this round against each other. They're competing against one other designer. So it's essentially a bracket tournament style. Okay?
Yeah, if we can actually go up to the screen right behind us, I think we may be able to check out what Adam was describing right here. We have some interesting graphics. I think that might be the other screen. There we go. So explain this. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so we had a virtual round to seed the tournament. So we had a design problem where the designers virtually had 1 hour to work on it. It's a similar situation to kind of prep them for what's going to happen on site.
Okay.
And based on how well they did, they were seeded like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So in our tournament bracket, 1 is facing number 8, 2 is facing 7, 3, 6, 4, and 5. And because we have an odd number, you'll see group 5 here. You'll see 9, 10, 11 are grouped together.
Okay.
Okay, so the
9,
lower,
10, 11. Okay.
yeah, they're the lower tier of the bracket right now because of how they performed in the virtual round. Okay, so I'm pretty excited about this.
Yeah.
And as we go and judge, we're going to be judging how well they essentially do against each other. And then it's basically like a basketball or a soccer tournament. You know, we have a winner's bracket and a loser's bracket. Yeah. And it's a double elimination. So if someone loses here in RUX 1, they can actually win out and still make it to the finals. Okay?
They still have an opportunity.
They still have an opportunity.
Right. Because of that double elimination.
Right.
Actually, if we can go back to that screen, that would be a great transition over to introduce our finalists. Adam, why don't you go ahead and introduce them? I know you have pretty much probably little anecdotes about each of these people.
So what was really cool, for me at least, I could mentally probably rank the designers because I see how well they do. I know how well they've done over the last 12 months. I know how well they've done in the different periods of qualification. Mm-hmm. But what was great about having this pre-seed round was it switched up my perceptions, right? So I am Tong, who is actually ranked in this case. I think he's seeded number 7. Is our
the reigning champ.
The reigning champ, and he is 434 first place wins or something I saw up there. Like, I mean, he is our all-time number 1 designer. Okay, but based on how he did in the pre-challenge, he ended up being number 7, which he now faces I Am Infinite, and I Am Infinite is our number 2 seed. Okay. So that's like when we saw the seeding, that was like my first that's gonna be crazy. Like, because right now one of those guys is gonna lose. So one of them is gonna lose a bracket where typically I might have seeded Tong first, and I'm Infinite maybe 2 or 3 or 4, and they would have played themselves later. It's almost like kind of like Kansas playing Duke or playing Kentucky, and like you don't expect them to play in the first round. Absolutely. You expect them to play in the 5th round, right? So I would expect I'm Infinite and Tong to compete in the in the final 1 or in the final. But in the seeding, they're duking it out right now.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, and same thing with then Robbie June and Ariantu. So that's Robbie is our this is in order by seed. So at the top we have Yoki's our number 1 seed. Mm-hmm. Actually, we can just go back real quick. I'm Infinite's our 2 seed. Robbie's our 3 seed. D-Jack's our 4th seed. Stark here is our 8th seed. Tong is our 7th. Ariantu is our 6th seed, and Universo is our 5th seed. So 4 and 5, D-Jack and Universo, it's kind of like, it's like the 4 and is 5th really 5th, is 4th really 4th, right? So
those are exciting in NCAA.
Right.
You're like, it could be either one.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So I'm looking to bring some of that excitement to this, right? And when we view this, we're viewing it with that kind of, oh my God, they have to fight, duke it out, and then they're gonna have to make it to the next round. And so now when we judge this, it's like who's gonna be the next matchup? So who moves? So I'm Infinite and Tong. So if Tong wins, essentially a 7th seed will then be playing another a high seed, right? And I Am Infinite. In this case, if I Am Infinite wins, he would be playing. What's the seed he ends up playing? Is it a higher or lower seed? So I'm super excited about the format.
Now, so when you are judging, you are going to be judging these groups.
The groupings.
So you're going to be like, all right, this one wins out over the other one.
Hey, did Yoki do a better job than Stark?
Right.
Yeah.
Does that make it judging easier on you?
Well, in theory, we're gonna find out. I mean, I haven't judged this way before,
true.
right? And I'm pretty excited about our judges too. So we're doing something a little different where I have one of our judges who's virtual. So she's not actually here. So she's not going.
Give a shout out to
Lynn Valvano. So she's gonna be our virtual judge. So she's not actually influenced by the on-site or knowing. She has a history with the designers, but it's gonna be totally virtual, not being influenced by what she's seeing or communicating with people here. And then we also have George Jensen, who's one of our judges, and he is new to Top Coder, has a great design background, and he doesn't know any of the designers or developers or anything, so he's completely uninfluenced, right? So I know everyone. I can tell you a story about every single one here. So I have there's some influence there, right? So I want to make sure that we're doing a great job judging. And then we also have Trevor, who's going to be judging also. So
good. So you got a lot of different minds. A lot of different areas of expertise.
Yeah, I don't want it to be like, oh, Adam said.
Yeah.
Right. So we definitely want to make sure we have a great judging panel. I don't know. Do we happen to have the larger bracket? design by chance? Screen?
Do we have a? Let's see if we have a bracket screen.
Okay, what was the other screen we were going to?
So
I could show that.
Fantasy matchup. We had a little fantasy matchup graphic up here. I believe we saw Robbie June. I believe we saw. Here we go. Oh, it's okay. So it's Yoki and Stark.
Yeah, so this is great. I love this graphic. So we have Yoki and Stark, and it shows how many challenges they've competed, how many wins. 108 for Yoki, 8 for Stark. Stark has an amazing story here. So Stark, he's come on pretty fast and furious this year, and I am Tong, our #1 designer in the community, actually help Stark become better.
As a mentor.
As a mentor, right. So Stark was asking him questions, how he could improve, and Tong was gracious and shared and gave him thoughts on how he could improve his design and critiqued his design.
Now, but these two members are in different countries, so they're not physically next to each other, and he's just like, all right, you should maybe try this.
Right.
Just over.
All virtual. All over Slack, over, all in the community, right?
And he's just constantly was just giving them tips, and he was improving himself.
And he was improving. Now they're both here, so I have to look at the bracket. But I don't know at some point if they're gonna like mentor versus mentee, right?
Yeah.
So it's gonna be. I'm excited about that, right? Like that could be pretty cool.
That would be a cool story. But he is up against Yoki. Yoki, seeded #1. You mentioned.
Yeah, so he ended up being seeded #1 in the overall tournament structure. So.
All right.
Definitely was. I mean, Yoki's a great designer. So, but it was just he did an amazing job on that initial virtual round and understood the problem and executed on it in that 1 hour and just stood out. And he was our #1 seed.
That is amazing. All right, let's see if we have any other matchups here. We have I Am Infinite and I Am Tong.
Yes, there we go. This is what I was talking about.
The I Am.
Yeah, the I Ams, right? I didn't think about that, right? The I Am round. That's pretty cool. So I'm Tong from Thailand. He's been a member since 2009. I'm Infinite since 2008. And Tong has been in over 1,000 challenges, right? And has 393 wins. So it's pretty crazy.
And he is a vet. I mean, you can see here 9 TCO appearances.
Yeah, he's reigning champ. He's won twice. So it's pretty cool. And in those RUX placements, this line here is actually for those 72-hour challenges.
Okay.
So of those 72-hour challenges, Tong has 38 placements in that. So first, second, third.
Right.
So it's pretty impressive. And when we say wins here, this is first place wins.
First place.
We're not including second or third in this.
Wow.
I mean, that's 393 first place wins.
Very impressive. Look at all those challenges.
Do we have another matchup?
I think we do have.
I love how these graphics turn out. This is awesome.
It's really cool.
DJack Mania. So DJack Mania is a previous TCO champion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back when? Do you remember?
I'm gonna say it was 07 or 08.
Because I do believe he did take a break at one point.
Yeah. So we always talk about how DJack's back. So that's kind of our thing.
DJack's back.
Yep.
And this is the Indonesia battle. Is there any other two Indonesians up against each other? I know we have a plethora of Indonesians and Indians, right? In this particular competition.
Yeah, Indonesia, India. We could actually go through we actually have this year. We actually have less members from Indonesia. It's actually more a wider grouping from around the world.
That's great.
So
well, here we go. We have Ravi June from India up against Erianto Onko, who didn't make it to the TCO last year, but
so he also took a break.
Okay,
so in between him coming 2 years ago and then coming this year, he actually kind of went off and worked on his own, worked for the company, and he wasn't competing. And then he decided to get back into it and made a mad dash for qualification and won a bunch of challenges and just qualified in the last period.
Really?
So yeah, it's pretty crazy. He wasn't really competing, and then he was like, "Hey, I'm going to make this happen." And he just all of a sudden was like, "Hey, your answer's winning, win," or second place or third place. Was like, "Hey, he's obviously back." So it was pretty cool to see that. And I mentally see these things. I'm not always necessarily on the ground seeing it, but I kind of have an understanding of where things are at or who's jumping in, and because you start seeing names or you start seeing customers refer to specific designers winning their work and stuff like that.
Oh,
so it's pretty cool. So Ravi June's a longtime designer, and he has I think 81 wins. So I mean he has an amazing story just because he's self-taught through this and he travels all the time and he like.
We mentioned it earlier. We like follow him on Instagram and he's just constantly he's always in a different country.
Oh, a different country, designing wherever he can find time to design and work, and he does an amazing job.
And he makes it to the TCO regardless. All right. So this is a triple versus. Oh, you were talking about
right.
this.
So this is because we ended up. Our 12th person wasn't able to make it, so we had 11. So that threw off my tournament structure a little bit.
Just
so
a little bit.
we decided to group 9, 10, and 11 together because they ended up being seated at the lower end of the pool. Now, what's going to happen is that we're going to have the first and second out of the 3. They will continue, into the winners bracket. But they're going to have to compete against the highest seed of each of those of the other wins. Okay, so like right now, Yoki's number 1. Say Yoki wins, and say Khan wins, Yoki will play Khan. Okay, so it'll be like 1 versus 10.
Yeah, what it should have been.
Right, and then it'll be right. So right now we did 1 versus 8, right, instead of 1 versus 11. And so out of this, we'll then play the highest seed, and so we'll keep the highest seed. The highest seed keeps playing the lowest seed. So it's pretty cool. So, I think you guys were watching the live broadcast earlier.
Yeah.
Vicky was on, which is pretty amazing. Her story and from Hungary, and she's here with her daughter.
Last year, right?
It's probably 2 years now, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I remember the story. I think it might have been last year because she joined in that year and earned her way to the TCO in the same year, and just, I guess, fell in love with the community, fell in love with design, and
well, she has a similar story as Stark, where she. So what's really funny on the Top Coder Nation Facebook page, she posted a photo over the last couple months where she was at a conference and she met the guy who didn't hire her.
No way.
Yeah. So the guy that was at this company, I'm not going to mention the company, that she was going in for a job interview, and she was Googling and looking for information, and go into the job interview with knowledge, right? Do your research, like any good designer, right? And found us because that company works with us. Okay, so found Top Coder and was like, hey, this is interesting. Well, she went in Hungary, went in for that job interview and didn't get the job. Okay, it was fine. But because of finding us, she decided to start competing. And she started, so it was our win, right? Because she didn't get that job.
Right.
And a couple months ago, or maybe a month ago, she posted, she ran into the guy at a conference and got a picture. He's like, why are you so happy to take this picture? She's like, well, since you didn't hire me, I went on this awesome journey, right? With Top Coder and the community. And she is, like Stark, she was in Slack, in the forums, always asking questions. Like, how do I get better? Why did I lose this? Why doesn't this work? And I'm going to tell you, of all the designers up there, she is the one that is in the forum asking a customer, any challenge, she's asking 50 questions. I mean, it's like everyone up there asks 1 or 2 questions because people are afraid of giving their ideas away, or there's some doubt of if I'm asking these things, someone's going to get my idea. No, she's like, here's my questions, I need these answers because I'm going to do a great job. And Tong is similar. He's obviously wins a lot, right? So he's unafraid of the question. He just gets in and asks questions. It's like, we want to solve this problem.
Well, I hope upcoming designers are bookmarking this particular segment, because we do get asked a lot, how do I become a good designer? How do I, excel at Top Coder as a designer? Asking questions.
Well, yeah, it's definitely about asking questions. It's also, if you lose, it's like finding out why. One of the core things at Top Coder is we want to provide feedback, okay? And we're introducing this year is our design and review board, okay? So
that's new this year.
Yes, and we're only 3 challenges in on it. We're still growing it, but the design review board is similar to our code review board. So the idea is all the code is reviewed by independent reviewers. Well, we're going to start independent reviewing the designs, but also create a culture of design discussion, right? So the designers or whoever's part of the design review board is up knowledgeable about latest trends, things that we're focused on, things that we care about for our customers. And so this review board will be able to provide feedback. Did you meet the spec requirements? Did you meet certain things? And be consistent in our feedback. Because right now we give a lot of feedback at the checkpoint, and then at the end the customer picks a winner, and then we it's because feedback's hard. It takes up a lot of time.
It does.
And seriously, my last 14 years at Top Coder has been feedback.
Yeah.
And so now we're going to be able to have input into that process, which I'm very, very excited about. It's going to be great to have other designers in our community that maybe I can help educate, and they can also help educate me, right? Because I'm getting old in this game, so it's going to be like, hey, maybe they can tell me what's the latest and greatest thing, right?
Exactly. It's just this cycle of life kind of thing. With
Right.
design.
And this way, to take that burden off the customer, because at the end of the challenge, customer says, I love this design, and then they say this is why they like it. Maybe someone captures that, or maybe they don't, and then that designer doesn't necessarily always get that feedback at the end, like, why was the winner picked? Why was mine not picked, right? Now, we do a pretty good job if a designer asks for that feedback, we'll jump in, okay, let's get this, but we're not consistent enough.
Okay.
And this is where with the review board, we'll be able to, every challenge, get that crucial feedback back to designers, because I think that's a key reason designers are at Top Coder. Because it's an educational process, they get feedback and they can learn how to be a better, not just a better designer, but a better user experience designer, right?
Exactly.
So.
We do only have a few minutes left. We would like to see some of the screens, perhaps, of what they're working on. Again,
yeah, that'd be great.
It's only 1 hour, so
yeah, right.
they only have almost halfway through their time.
So we provided a wireframe,
okay?
And one of the things that I talk about when in these 1 hour rapid user experience challenges is that I don't want them to take the wireframe and color it. Okay, that's not the idea. Is the wireframe is providing them information architecture of what the customer's expecting to be part of. Yeah.
Okay, so like little components.
Right. And now it's going to be like, what's their interpretation of the business problem? What's their interpretation of like what's going to be a better experience, and or what's going to be a way to improve that? So a lot of things that we do at Top Coder, what I teach is also understanding, like where's AI coming into experiences? Okay, where is cognitive machine learning? Where is like we're getting to this idea of like zero UI, right? Or the idea of like voice, right? So how does speaking to something drive an experience, right? So these are the things that we like to have our designers think about. Now, not saying that's a solve for this problem, but those are the things that we want to really push and show our customers that our designers are thinking and bringing those experiences to their apps, okay? So in this specific app,
what is it? I guess we never really described.
Yeah, I was kind of avoiding that a little bit. I don't want to get too deep into it, but it's
is it going to persist through other rounds?
See, I can't really share that, right?
Oh.
So it's like
no worries.
It's part of like. So we did share that we did share the app. So there is the idea that this app will be used throughout but then there's twists to our ask.
All right.
And so in this case, there is an app that our customer has that is a digital product catalog, okay? So obviously the stuff that we deal with at Top Coder, our customers bring us some pretty heavy enterprise apps. It's not like always the most super sexy, like, hey, go build this really cool website for super cool, cutting, latest technology website that you're gonna go, right? So this is an internal application for our customer, codename Hestia, and it is for their employees to be able to track product spec sheets, which you're like, hey, that doesn't sound right. But it's pretty cool because the idea is that like there's all these other apps that tap into this one through APIs to get this information. So this customer has over 1 million products that are supplied to them by different vendors, and they have to track all this stuff, right? And so it's essentially many ways, many people may reference it as like a digital asset management system or a repository. In this case, it's more, they call it more of a product asset management. But the idea is that these PDFs, these video files, these images are all tracked inside here, and they're able to then edit, annotate, comment, annotate on these things, create different versions of them, and then essentially send them to where they need to go for their customers. It's an internal app. So it's not something that would be external to their customers, but it's to help the kind of workflow they have. Right, they're working on right now is essentially, there's over 1 million products, and there's all these different ways to search for those products. Now, obviously, the customer has a very unique way of searching that they're in their business is ingrained. It's just what their employees know, right? But how do we simplify that search? And then also, assuming OCR is involved, So all the documents, all the PDF documents, all that is actually being scanned as it's being uploaded into the system. You can search on a lot more.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is that? In 1 hour, we're asking them to look at that search experience and improve that search experience. Like, I didn't say like go build a mobile app. I didn't say like go create this big desktop applications. It's like, so we provided a wireframe. We're looking at a very unique situation in RUX number 1.
Wait, just to go back. So they don't necessarily need to make it for desktop or mobile. They can choose.
This one is focused right now on desktop.
Desktop. Okay. This.
Right. So it is a desktop app, but what they're focused on is the search experience, which I know is like, hey, that doesn't sound like super fun, but
Yeah.
it's a common, like search is a common thing that we get from all of our customers, but now we're bringing in this idea of like, okay, well, it's a super smart search. There's all this information that can be searched and pulled back. What essentially is that experience? And it's an hour. It's the very first RUX here at the event, so we didn't want to like throw everything at this very first one. Exactly. We're gonna get a little more interesting on RUX 2 and then the semifinal. So.
Really cool, and we seem to have a little group filing behind us. This is one of the most visually appealing, obviously, competitions to view as a live audience.
Well, and this year, instead of having to wait here for 3 hours, it's going to be done here in 30 minutes, right? I mean, it's like, so and what's cool is that now even anybody out here can start looking and saying, oh, I feel like Yoki's doing better, or I feel like Tong's doing better. Like, you can actually start making your own kind of judging conclusions because you're seeing the matchup, right?
That's cool. I think if we can flip over to the screen up here, we had. Oh, I guess it's a slideshow. So they did show the brackets for a second.
Oh, okay.
Up there, yeah. So we don't have the graphic currently, but
well, maybe later I'll show it because it's. I just want to. Well, maybe we'll talk about it later, but just show like where people are at in the next couple rounds and how it all kind of.
Are we going to be filling out the names?
Exactly, right? So we should probably print out, like, let everyone fill out their brackets, huh? Should put
for next year, we should
put a wager.
Yeah, you got to have odds and everything.
Right.
Or maybe they pick their own fantasy team.
That's what I'm saying, right? So.
Very cool. Well, I think we are coming up on time here, so I appreciate you coming out, explaining
Hey, Nick,
it.
this is awesome. I always love coming on and explaining what we have going on.
We may have you back a little bit later on, maybe in the second round or even the final round.
Okay. Well, definitely.
A little bit more. But again, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, that is Adam Moorhead, aka ACRush, explaining the UI design semifinal 1 competition. So very new this year. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to be discussing Algorithm Semifinal 1. That competition is live currently. We'll send it over to the leaderboard, but we'll be right back with Arito and LG, and they will be helping me describe to you what they're working on, what the problems are, and all that. It's going to be great. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Right, and we are back. TCO19 Algorithm Semifinals 1. Joining us, we have Erito, LG, what's your number? 5293, and Piotr right there on the end. I believe you'll be competing a little bit later. So, guys, I'm going to shove it on to you to explain the problems, what our competitors are working on, and perhaps maybe do some drawings and educate the audience. How about that? All right, take it away.
Sounds nice. Yeah. I guess we can start with commenting the leaderboard for a moment. Can we get that on the screen?
Yeah, all right. Let's get the leaderboard up. All right.
There were a lot of resubmissions already, like resubmits 3. Tourists resubmitted. Who else? Igor?
So Scott and Igor also resubmitted.
And also Snook on the 500.
Oh yeah, Snook resubmitted on 500. I guess we missed that. So it looks
wow.
like a very active scoreboard right now with a lot of activity. And like this is only halfway through the competition, so we can expect a lot more towards the end.
Right.
Yeah, so right now it looks like 3 contestants have opened the 1000. So remember, for this round, the top 4 make it to the final round. So the most important thing is to get to the top 4. Right now it looks like it could kind of be anybody's game. It's really hard to tell because the middle of the pack is very close to each other. And definitely the bottom 2 can move up with like opening the heart in the last half an hour or so.
Okay. For those of the audience that don't know what they're actually looking at this point, here's a little explanation. At the top, you see the points 250, 500, 1000. Those are 3 different problems of increasing difficulty. So what we see here, the blue numbers, those are problems that particular member has submitted. Submitted validly.
It's just
They passed the test.
They passed
some tests.
They passed some tests. It gets run through a more rigorous testing afterward, but they passed the ones for this particular competition. As we can see, that we already have some members who have completed both the 250 and 500. We did notice that Lyrically had opened the 1000 first and successfully passed those tests. We don't know if it's a final done deal yet. But is there an advantage to opening up like the hardest one first, or?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, people have different strategies, so like, I don't know if you have any particular strategies that you'd like to talk
I guess
about.
the most important part of strategy is to indeed test, because with top coder scoring, you aren't hurt with points if you test after you're done with a problem, but before opening the next one. Petr, I think you always test after submitting, or not always?
But this round is kind of weird because the first 2 problems are really inviting correct submissions, it seems. And so here opening 1000 is also good because I think it has like one of the samples is 1 million, 1 million. And if you pass that one, you're kind of likely to pass all cases. So I think Lyrically is kind of the only person we should be certain has a non-zero score in this round.
I think in 1000, today in the morning or maybe yesterday evening, we added n equal to 1 test to the samples, because I guess it would be not very pleasant not to pass the hardest problem just because of smallest possible n. But with n equal to 1 and n equal to 1 million, I think that kind of covers everything. I would be surprised if somebody doesn't pass real tests.
Now, I don't think I introduced you properly. You guys are the problem writers, right? Erito and LG?
Yeah.
So you wrote these problems that these members are working on, these competitors.
Or not these specific ones, I guess.
Okay.
But we've written problems like for all of the finals, I guess.
Oh,
like for
very
all 3
cool.
rounds.
All right, so let's go over these problems. So what are they looking at with the 250 problem?
Warning to all UI
Yeah, so we
design
can
competitors.
switch to the iPad.
There are
or
15
so,
minutes remaining in the current
I
UI
think you
design
can. There's also a link
competition
in the
round.
Twitch chat.
Yeah,
if you wanna,
so
like,
I think
read the problem
Harshit will
statement.
be linking up the problems in the chat. So go ahead and click there to see what the competitors are working on.
Okay, yeah, so I can go over what the 250 is asking. So basically the situation is you have some lines of people who want to get into a venue. So there's n lines. And the ith line has, there's like A1 people in first line, A2 in second line, and so on. So you're given this array AN. So like AI is like number of people in ith line. So you want to count, or there's a way you can count the number of people who enter the venue. So basically, when somebody gets to the front of the line, you like grab you have a global variable x. So first you like check the value of x. You process a person, you increment the value of x by 1, then you write the value of x back to like the global pool. So now the problem is this count can be like inaccurate if you have some race conditions. Like for example, if multiple lines try to pull the global value of x, they might not, or like they might not get the right value of x before, before they write it back. So you're wondering what's the minimum value of x after all people have been processed. So you can imagine like for each person, there's like one grab value of x, like increment x by 1, and then like set global value. So each person, you need to follow these 3 steps in this order exactly. So you have these people online, and you want to see like what's the minimum value of the final value of x, given that like you have to process these people, or like you can rearrange like the instructions in like different lines, but each line you must have this order. So we can go over one of the sample cases, which is, I guess, like if there's a single line with 7 people. So like the sample case is like 7. You have to have a case where like you process the first person line, you increment, process, increment, and so on. So this just means like this is like grab value of x, and this is like set value after. So after you process these instructions, the final value is equal to 7. And like there's no way you can get any less because those people need to be processed sequentially. But alternatively, if you have a case where there's like 1 person in each line, one situation that could happen is like everybody grabs the value of x first, then everybody tries to write it back in. The problem is, in this case here, everybody grabs the value of 0 first and writes the value of 1 back. So the final value of x is 1. So in this case, like even though like we should have gotten 3, like if there are some race conditions, we can get an answer of 1 at the end. So the problem is like given this array of values, like what's the minimum value of the final variable we can get?
Okay, and it seems that a lot of people were were familiar with this type of problem, perhaps.
Yeah, so this is like kind of a classical like concurrent programming like type of puzzle. So like some people might have seen something similar, but you need to be able to like solve the specific problem. So there might be different approaches you might take. So yeah, you can talk about like how you might approach it in contest, or like what are some types of solutions maybe.
This is the only problem about which I can't talk about because I didn't know it.
Okay.
So we're discussing this problem quite a bit in the arena, and it looks like our hypothesis is that all the fast submissions, like submissions of 30 seconds or so in the beginning, where basically just takes the minimum number from the input, and then what you do is that this person, the person from this queue enters, takes the value of the counter, then all other queues go by, and then we continue with this queue, so that the number we get in the end is equal to the minimum number, to the number of people in this queue.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's definitely an upper bound to the answer, right?
Yeah, and I know, probably intentionally, the sample cases do not disprove this hypothesis.
Yeah, definitely. That's true. The samples are not super strong, so there could be opportunities for like challenges. So yeah, so that's one approach. One approach that a lot of people did at the first like 10 minutes or 15 minutes is like they just submitted a solution where they answer like the minimum of the array. But yeah, that one.
Is there a short counter example? Or is it hard to construct?
Well, it will have to have numbers of at least 3.
Yeah, so the shortest one is probably like 3-3. I think you can just do this with 2.
Yeah,
so
3-1, so you can do this.
Oh yeah, 3-1. So you have 3-1. Or 3-1 you can do with 1. Or like 3-1
Or
is
you can
fine.
do with 1, okay, yeah, so
Okay,
3-3,
so,
you're right.
yeah, so 3-3 is probably the small sample. In this case, I think the correct answer looks something like this. B, A, then B, A, B. So basically, this is like 0, 1, this is 2, and then this is 1. But then when B picks up the value here, it takes the previous value, so this picks up 1. This one picks up 1 also. That's a 2. I think there needs to be another AB here, but it doesn't really matter. But then the final value is 2. So you can always get, 2 in this case, so the minimum doesn't necessarily work.
There's still a bit more corner cases which are also not covered, like all numbers equal to 0, for example. So even if you get this point, you can still fail system tests.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so this one's a little bit tricky. There's a lot of different corner cases for it, so
That might not be at the tests.
Yeah, so it might not be in the tests when contestants first submit, but they could definitely fail it. So right after the coding challenge ends, there's like the challenge phase. So contestants can look at other contestant solutions and try to like hack the solution by making such a case. So we might see a lot of activity during that phase because there are a lot of corner cases for this problem.
That's going to be fun to see. All right, let's move on to the 500 problem.
Okay.
Who's going to
I
describe
can
it?
present that one. 500 problem was, I think, called slide cards left. And there we start with just cards that are from left to right, 0, 1, till n-1. And in one move, if some card is on its proper position, let's say here a 2 is on the second position, counting from 0, you can move it to the left, what shifts other cards to the right by 1. It doesn't have to be like to the very first position, it can be like here. But if you put 2 by 2 positions to the left, you will get sequence 2, 0, 1, and then 3, 4, and so on. The thing is that we cannot repeat that infinitely, because we can only make moves. For example, right now I'm blocked here. None of those cards can be moved because a card I must be on position I, so we could move it. But we can, for example, move 3. Then it will push second card and others slightly to the right. Then they will be again pushed, and eventually maybe we can reuse card 2. The simple version of the question would be, how many moves can we make? And that answer is very easy if you just implement some simulation, try all possibilities and see the answer. But real thing is, after some number of moves, S, that is given in the input, steps, like we have n up to 500, just like the number of points, and steps up to 10 to 12. Though this constraint doesn't turn out to be that important, initially it was, this value was 2 to 60, and we considered 10 to 18, eventually it turned out to be 10 to 12, but doesn't matter much in the complexity. Given S, we should find how the sequence should look like after S steps if we behave optimally, that is, we try to maximize the number of steps. And some solution, one thing we can do in this problem is make observations and think what can be done. The other is to just write that simulation and print steps. And then first thing we see is that the maximum possible number of steps for every next n is 1, 3, 7, 15, 31, and so on. You can see a pattern here. This is a power of 2, decreased by 1. So this already hints something with binary numbers. And then we can also print how those moves, what moves will give us that maximum possible sequence. Turns out that every time when we make a move, it's okay to just consider that maximum possible shift to the left. It isn't optimal to move card 5 by 3 positions to the left. We always move it to the very first position to shift everything else. And if you print those moves, for example, one by one in optimal sequence of moves, then you will see that first you move number 1. What will we have? 0, 1, 2. We can move number 1, 1, 0, 2. Then number 2, 2, 1, 0. Then number 1 again, 1, 2, 0. Then we can move number 3 and so on. We can greedily, it turns out, move the smallest number that we can move. And if for every next step you write down which number you moved, which card you moved, because you cannot just simulate as steps. So here it was 1, then 2, again 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 4, and so on. This is also a pattern that you might recognize if you experimented with a lot of problems, because you can think about it as height of some binary tree or about some powers of 2. Actually, for step I, you can find the biggest power of 2 that is a divisor of I. Let's say for step 12, we know that 4 is a divisor of 12, so number 4 will be, fourth card will be moved, if it's 2 to 4. You need to find the exponent. So that gives us some solution that first we can, of course, simulate linearly, just considering every next step, just guessing that our observation from small n is correct, that this is optimal sequence. But also we should quickly print that end sequence, and for that we can think which card was moved last. That one will be at the very first position. Which card was moved just before that? That will be in second position, and so on. So when we have step, let's say we are at step 14, then I want to know when for the last time I moved a card related to, let's say, power of 2 that is 8, and I know that this was when I had a step that is divisible by 8, so that was 8. When for the last time I moved a card related to 4, when I was at step 12. So those steps tell us when was last time I moved this card, and if you sort cards by this last time you move it to the first position, you will get the order of cards that is the answer. The complexity of that is n times log n if you indeed use a sort. I guess O of n is possible, but not require it all, because we have n up to 500. And I think participants didn't have much trouble with this problem. We had some quick submissions. What else? The statement says print any sequence that satisfies that, but there is just one sequence. It can be proved if you think which numbers at their positions, if card 3 is at position 3 then something, then you can think about the binary representation of the whole thing, and it must decrease or increase by 1 every step. From this you can get some limitation, and just one move can be optimal. The statement could say just print that one only possible sequence, and again this was thing that we quite late changed. We added quite empty checker to this problem, a program that will check your answer, because we didn't want to reveal that there is just one unique answer. And we did that very, very late, but I hope we didn't cause any troubles during the round. I'm not aware of any.
Piotr, do you have any input on this? Did you read the problem?
Yeah, I read the problem. I didn't try to actually write out the sequences for small values of n, which I think is a key to solving it. So now that Camille explains it, it becomes really easy. And also, it doesn't seem that there are many corner keys in this one. So
That's
probably
true.
my bet would be that all submissions are probably correct.
You can get an overflow.
Yeah, but also we had one resubmission, so there must be something to get wrong in this problem.
I hope we know that.
Maybe it's overflow.
It might be overflow. I think
Yeah.
samples are quite small, so they will not check if you correctly handle powers of 2 that don't fit in int in C++ or Java.
So I wonder what that means for the overall scoreboard. So as we discussed, solutions for 1,000 probably correct,
Sure, let's look at the
and solutions for
scoreboard.
500 are probably most of them
Attention,
are correct.
the first round of the
So it
2019
looks
Top
like
Coder Open
whoever
UI
gets
Design
1,000 probably
Competition
advances,
is now
and then
complete.
from the 500 people
The
it will
results
be
will
really
be
about
ranked and
correctness
the
up to
standings
50
will be
and
announced
or the
prior
challenges
to the
up to
next
50.
round.
So I think the boundary for advances will be really, the margin will be very small, and people will have to fight it out in the challenge phase, it seems.
Right now, if everything passes, we have the boundary of 586 to pass, but we should get some more submissions. We have 25 minutes left, so it looks like maybe 655 will be the first place.
655. Maybe, yeah. So it looks like maybe we'll get a lot of fails on the 250 and potentially not as many for the 500. So yeah, it will basically be decided by who sells the 1,000 in the last 25 minutes.
Also, challenges will move some people up with score.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, to be frank, it seems that now there are only 2 solutions remaining with really high score for 250. So those are the most likely to fail, the solutions of ACRush and snuke. Maybe that's not actually a lot after all. But there's still a lot of time to solve this 1000. Do you think it's feasible to solve it in 20 minutes? So I think lyrically took more like 40 minutes, but
Yeah, maybe. It could take 20 minutes. So it
Let's,
looks like
let's see, let's try to talk about the solution and see if it takes less than 20 minutes. That's a good start.
yeah, we can talk about the 1000 next, I guess, and move back to the screen.
Maybe just write 1000 at the top.
1000. Do we need to switch back also?
Sure, yeah. So let's go back to the iPad here to discuss the 1000
yeah.
problem.
Okay, so for the 1000 problem, the statement is you're given a complete graph with n vertices, and then you remove a path of length n. So
Maybe you can just draw it with n,
yeah.
maybe n equal to 4.
so basically you have some complete graph, vertices, and remove path from 1 to n.
We are given two numbers, n, number of vertices, and m, length of a path that is being removed from a graph.
So like let's label these, and then like maybe remove. I guess I can go like this. So you're given this graph, and you want to count the number of spanning trees in this graph. So basically, given n and then count spanning trees. Yeah, I guess we can start, or where should we start?
With maybe what happens for m equal to 1, that is,
Yeah.
what if just the graph is complete?
Okay, so m equals 1 means graph is complete.
And then there is a well-known formula.
So there's a formula called Cayley's formula. And it says number of complete graphs, or number of spanning trees in a complete graph is n to the n minus 2. The way you can derive this is through like proofer codes, which I guess, I don't know if we have time to cover, but
I think not, but Wikipedia explains
Yeah.
it nicely with an example in a
yes,
small graph.
so you can prove through,
Proofer code.
yeah, let me see,
P-R-U-F-E-R.
yeah, so if you just look this up, you can look at the proof, but basically, this is like a well-known formula, so most people are familiar with this. So if m equals 1, you can get this formula. So what happens if m is bigger? So usually with problems like these, there's a lot of different approaches. So I guess you thought about a lot of different things when you first saw this
Yeah,
problem, right?
I can list my ideas for this problem because I was stuck at some point. I asked Lewin for a hint because he's the author. And I just listed down my ideas, and those included proofer, Kirchhoff, inclusion-exclusion principle, of course combinatorics, maybe thinking that every edge it occurs in the same number of spanning trees, so maybe also for a given set of edges that form a path, we can say that we can multiply some simple values and say that if this one appears in 1/10 of spanning trees and this one appears in 1/10 of spanning trees, then both appear in 100. That would assume that they are kind of independent, fact that they are in spanning tree, but this is not true at all. But yeah, did I say inclusion exclusion?
Yeah,
Because
you
that's
said
the
it.
main part too.
Yeah.
Well, let's just take a quick break. We'll get right back to it. It looks like Tourist has completed all problems at this point.
Oh yeah, so it looks like he finished the 1000 pretty fast too. I would say that's about 20 minutes, right, or so. I don't know.
What are your thoughts of him? Like, he was in the marathon match last night, or yesterday, I should say.
Yeah.
Competing all day. Do you feel like that's like a big warm up for him? I mean, does it translate somewhat? Marathon.
Maybe it
The way
should
you
be
think?
the other way around to make
Yeah.
it a warm-up.
Yeah, marathon
true,
is
that's true.
definitely very tiring mentally.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, so right now we have Tourist on top. Lyrically, who we didn't get to see too much of. I think Lyrically's last appearance at a TCO was TCO19. So they're back this year. All right, yeah, let's go back to the 1000 problem. See where you left off.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so the main way to solve this is through inclusion-exclusion, so principle of inclusion-exclusion. So basically, the idea is like you can fix some set of edges that are in the spanning tree, and then we can like subtract out the number of spanning trees with at least like one edge, then subtract out things or add back the ones with at least two, and so on. So like if I draw like the complete graph, let's say, and like let's say there's like all these edges here, but like not in between here, then basically like I'll count. So this is like edge 1, edge 2, edge 3. I'll count the number of spanning trees with like none of the edges, or like I don't force any of them to be in the spanning tree. Then I force like one of them to be in the spanning tree. Then I force two of them to be in the spanning tree, and so on.
Instead of saying we count spanning trees that don't contain edges, it's easier for us to say let's count spanning trees that contain some edges that we already fixed, because we say that those are some connected components, and we kind of just need to connect everything else into a connected piece.
Okay, so let's solve the problem where we fix some edges that we want to be in our spanning tree and count the number of spanning trees from there. So basically, after we fix some edges in our spanning tree, we collapse them into different connected components. So basically, we'll have some line, and like we'll have some segments like this maybe, and something like this, or like basically it just says like these edges are forced and these edges are forced, and like there's some edges here that we can or can't use. And from here, like all it really matters is the sizes of the components and the number of components. So basically, like this is like 4, 2, 3, 1, 1, and there might be some more edges or more nodes and so on. So there's a generalization of Cayley's formula, which can count the number of spanning trees in this graph. So here, like we can connect any node with any other node, but we just want to know the number of spanning trees. So like I'll call these like the sizes S1, S2 through SK. So the formula for this is, I think, like the product of this.
So 4 times 2 times 3 times 1 times 1.
And then you multiply by like this SK to the like K minus 2, I think. So this is like the generalization of Cayley's formula. This one you can also derive through Cooper codes, I think. It is a little bit more complicated.
Not that directly. I didn't get this step while I was solving this problem first as a tester, because I knew from proper code that there is some more complicated formula with binomial coefficients that uses S1, S2, and so on. That basically out of n minus 2 elements in proper sequence, I need to choose some number of them to say that those are these things from connected component 1 and so on. But yeah, it boils down to exactly this if you get rid of binomial coefficients. And it's something that, again, is good to know, just like n to the n minus 2.
Yeah, so this is always fixed to be n because the total number of nodes is always n. So the hard part is like computing this part fast, because we don't want to do this for every subset of edges. So that's like the first observation you need to make, at least to get to this part. So the second step you can do is, I think there are two ways to do this. One is you can do some sort of like dynamic programming where you go from left to right, and you like consider like the size of the last one, I think, and like whether you take it or not, because basically only the parity of the number of components matters, and not like the actual number. So like you only need to keep track of 2 states rather than all n. But there is basically another way to phrase this problem. So basically you want to find sum of like S1 times S2 times SK, where S1 plus S2. So basically, like this is like the problem we want to solve, like for a fixed K and n, and like Si is greater than or equal to 1, I think. So this is the problem we want to solve. Like this is another common problem we solve. But once we have this solution, then we can solve the original problem by doing inclusion exclusion. So yeah, for this one, it turns out there's a simple formula with binomial coefficients, and it's not too hard to derive, I think, or like it's kind of hard to like see. Like you can like write down some small patterns and try to see. But one way to do it is like you can do like this is like closely related to like the number of partitions. So you can do some sort of like bars and stars argument. So like if you imagine like you have some like dots and so on, like this, and the number of ways to arrange these bars is like the number of bars choose, or like the number of objects choose the number of bars. So it's like C number of objects, like number of bars. And this is like the number of ways to partition this. But we want the product of the sizes. So what we can do is we can like choose like one element in here that's like a special element. And as long as we iterate through all the ways to choose one element in each bucket, then like this contributes like the product to the size, or to the sum. So the thing you can notice is like the x's and bars will always alternate. Because you want exactly one x between each pair of bars. So you can simplify this to just like some combinatorics coefficient. Or some binomial coefficient.
I can quickly show how I eventually derived the formula, because when there is Pascal triangle, a triangle with binomial coefficients, and I just wrote down with brute force what are results, then I noticed that 6 for 1, I think I need like 2 more rows for that, 10, 1, 6, 15 and so on. I noticed that numbers that I get for some n and for different k were like 1, 5, 6, and what is next? I think 1 again. And then for the next n I got, I think, 1, 6, 10, 4, and that's it. Then 1, 7, 15 and so on. So I just noticed a pattern that we jump like this, and from those I guess the formula. So again, just like with the previous problem, I use the fact that I can use a computer, I can implement something else instead of doing the logic with observations. It's an important technique in competitive programming to know how to guess stuff.
Yeah, so I guess we can talk about the leaderboard.
Yeah,
now.
sure. Let's switch back over to the leaderboard here. Looks like Tour's still on top.
Yeah, so it looks like it's about the same since last time. So right now there's actually not really an incentive to submit early because if you do get it correct in the next 10 minutes, you'll probably be in the top 4, unless a lot of people submit. But it's better to hold on to your solution at this point, I think, and make sure it's definitely correct before submitting. So most people might be like waiting for the last like minute or so to submit, so you might not see anything for a while. I don't know if you want to comment.
What do you write?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's a
Why
strat.
would one wait?
So like, let's say like you think you got the 1,000. You wouldn't submit until you see somebody else submit, I think, because like
There are only 4 spots.
yeah, because there's 4 spots, so you might like wait a bit to like make sure, like if you're not completely sure yours is correct.
Yeah, but can you really be not sure with this problem when it has all the corner cases in the problem?
Oh yeah.
The fact
okay,
that
that's
this
true.
is this
yeah.
problem.
Yeah. Okay. In general, maybe you can assume this, or you could, but I think for this problem specifically, if you get the corner cases, or if you get all the samples, you probably have all the corner cases.
If somebody knew the full leaderboard at the end, so they would know the cutoff, like how many points you need to advance, then it would be perfect to, from this compute, how much time you still have before you can submit hard and still make the cutoff, and then submit 1 minute before that to have as much time for this testing as possible.
Yeah.
But they don't know that. The leaderboard will change likely a lot during the challenge phase.
Yeah. And what do you think Tourist is doing right now with this extra time? So like he's probably thinking about like preparing challenge cases and
Testing his marathon solution from
stuff.
Oh, so you think he's locked in? He's thought of all the corner cases. He won't be burned
He's ready.
in the test.
Yeah, so he did resubmit for the 250, so that does mean he probably has some challenges in mind. So you might try to snatch those up to deny them from other people.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure what the other contestants are doing because, like, I don't know how many are actively still working on the 1,000. Like, Igor and Snook have had it open for the longest so far. But maybe they might have given up and just focused on like the easier problems to try to find other corner cases for them. It's not too clear because there's still 10 minutes, so it's a little bit of time to finish.
And again, for those of you who are new to it, the way this works, the 1,000-point problem, The points do start at 1,000 and they count down, and that's based on the time spent on the problem until you can submit to the test cases for the problem. So if you get all those correct, your time stops. That is the points that you are awarded. Now, the competition isn't over once that countdown is completed. After that happens, there's going to be a challenge phase that happens. So, as Lou had mentioned before, what they get to do is open each other's code, and they can look through it, and they can insert in an input that they believe would, receive either
Like wrong answer.
Wrong answer.
Or time limit or other
Okay.
verdicts. Yeah.
any kind of error, really. So if that happens, or what happens, if it's successful,
Yeah.
the person who challenged gets how many points?
The person who's challenging gets 50, and the person who got challenged loses all the points for that.
Loses all the points. So theoretically, if Tourist lost that last challenge, or someone challenged him and succeeded, he would lose all those points that you just saw. However, there are times where you're trying to gain points, and are you just kind of trying to input this one
Counter test.
one test that you think people would miss and just kind of hit everybody, or
Oh, like blind challenges?
blind challenge.
Yeah. That could be a feasible strategy. Like, we did see a lot of resubmits, so one feasible strategy could be just to, blind challenge a lot of people, because, only one person can get the challenge, so, you want to be the person to get those points. But it depends on, how confident you are if you're going to mess up. It really depends on the problem.
I think in this case it's pretty safe to go challenge with the state 3 case that you mentioned, because it seems to be kind of the main tricky thing.
Yeah.
And especially since there are two kind of obvious suspect solutions, I expect that people will not actually read them. They will just literally click on the solution, type the case as fast as possible, maybe try to not use mouse and use keyboard for extra speed,
Oh, yeah.
and click challenge. So that's what will happen in the first 2 seconds of the challenge
For
phase.
sure, it's good to prepare it in advance and then just copy paste.
For 3.3, I'm not so sure what is based faster, because for copy paste you need to press 2 keys at the same time, and 3.3 is you can kind of do with 2 hands. Maybe it's comparable.
There's some, micro optimizations you can make.
You
Let's
can,
get the leaderboard up real
you
quick.
can have
here.
a mouse that has some programmable buttons.
Lyrically has
That would be
submitted
ideal.
her 500 point problem.
Yeah, Lyrically submitted to 500, but he's still 300 points behind Tourist. So Tourist is well ahead because of his lead on the 1,000, and it doesn't look like anybody can really catch up to him. So he'll probably keep that all his problems full. But yeah, we'll see who rounds out the top 4.
Actually, it looks like the fastest submission, not corrected yet, is Tourists for 500 problems, for 500 problem, because he just lost 17 points there. What
Oh, he
means that
resubmitted? Is that
no,
what
no,
you're
I'm
for
saying
500?
that compared to the full score,
Oh, okay.
he must submit in
Oh,
what,
yeah, wow.
Yeah, he
I
had
don't
a
know,
very
2-3
fast
minutes.
500. Yeah.
Oh my
You need to have very good time to get that score.
good time,
It's
yeah.
even better than ACRush 241 for 250 problem. Just of course proportion matters, the ratio. But that might mean that Tourist already knew such a problem, or that it was very, very obvious for him what happens. For sure he didn't apply my strategy where I would first implement some brute force to find that sequence and analyze the pattern. There would be no time for that.
I believe we have some matchup screens too here.
Yeah.
Okay, well these are just the list. Here's the matchup. So what are we looking at here? We have Eknerwall, there's Scott Wu. Here are just some stats.
Yeah, so I think only Scott's competing in this semifinal. Eknerwall's in the other one.
Oh, Eknerwall's in another one.
Yeah,
Well, I guess yeah.
Both from USA.
But if they were to match up, hey look, we got Piotr here.
Yeah.
So I guess this is for the next semifinal. That's all right. We'll go back to this. Okay, semifinal 1.
Yeah, so we can see the history of TCO participations for these contestants, and yeah, a lot of these contestants have been to TCO many times.
And we have 4 champions in this round.
Yeah, so 4 people have won TCO at least once in this round.
So far, Makoto, RNG58, has 60% accuracy of winning Top Corner Open finals. 3 times champion, 5 times finalist. Unless it says 3 out of 8. I'm not sure if
No,
finalist
it's
is counted.
3 out of 5, I think.
Okay, 3 out
Yeah,
of
so
5
it's
is a
60%.
nice score. I think he isn't on the top of the leaderboard now. I think he's
Yeah.
7th. He was 7th.
Yeah, I think this semifinal seems a little bit harder, or it has like more experienced competitors. Like there's definitely some first-time finalists.
Yeah,
but,
a couple there.
these members have also been competing in top coder for a while, I think. Yeah, but most of these have like a lot of experience. Yeah, well, this is definitely a pretty tough path to the top four in.
And again, like we mentioned, only 4 can advance, and we did see that Lyrically is toward the top at this point, so we may be losing a former champion in the first round.
Yeah. Yeah, there are other people to watch out for, I guess. So I think right now Igor and Snuke are also in the top 4.
Okay.
So yeah, like Igor has a lot of experience. Snuke is a first-time finalist, so it's pretty exciting for him. And we'll see if any of the other people in the bottom 4 can get their points in the challenge phase or eventually finish the hard in the next couple of minutes.
And it looks like Japan is kind of dominating this round too, huh? They have they have half the field
Yeah,
here.
they have half the field.
Let's get back to that leaderboard now that we've.
Okay, yeah. It
Okay,
looks
look
like
at this. We got
Luis-
UWI, who is a first-time finalist here.
Yeah, another first-time finalist submitting the 1,000. So I think our hypothesis is like most 1,000s will pass. So it really is down to 250s and 500s, and like which ones fail.
So, like you mentioned, you want to. Some might be waiting to see where other people land. Now that there's one spot theoretically open, are we going to start? And 2 minutes left.
Yeah, we might see some last-minute submissions, and I guess we'll just keep an eye out. But one interesting to note is like most of the bottom 4 is like only maybe 2 or 3 challenges behind in top 4 right now.
Okay.
So I think there probably might be like at least 3 challenges in this room.
So the successful challenge is at 50 points, right?
Yeah, so
Swing.
it could kind of be anybody's game if like they challenge fast enough. An unsuccessful challenge is minus 25, so there is some risk for blind challenging at least.
Okay.
So we'll see who can, I guess, get those challenges.
We might see some interesting things happening at the beginning of the challenge phase, because if you're at the very bottom of the leaderboard, say right now for ACRush, if he doesn't submit the 1,000 pointers, then they should in first seconds indeed blind challenge other people to take a risk, but also maybe get those 50 points here and there, because then if they just read codes and challenge if they are sure that something is incorrect, other people will do that too. It's too hard for to yourself get like 2 or 3 challenges.
Yeah.
This is so interesting. I know in my years, like these bottom 2, I mean, they won the whole thing before, so it's kind of interesting to see them at the bottom. But like you said, it's anyone's game, and that's what makes this competition so exciting. That's why this is one of our more popular competitions here at Top Coder. So time is almost up. How much time do we have left? About 40 seconds. After the 40 seconds, they'll get a 5-minute break, I guess.
And actually, this is not a break; it's a very important part of the competition.
They need to
Okay.
prepare.
It's called intermission phase, just before the challenge phase, and it's a time when you can't correct your own solution anymore, but you can prepare a test in order to quickly challenge other people. In particular, in the first problem, maybe it is possible to find like 2 or 3 possible mistakes, and if you can do it, then combine them into one test that will cover all of that. Maybe it's hard to do, maybe it's impossible, but you should try to do that. And then if you see any mistake in somebody's code, then just put that test, master test that you created.
Oh, I see. So they're using that.
The coding phase is now complete. Code submissions will no longer be accepted.
All
The
right.
challenge phase of the competition round will begin shortly.
I am not a ventriloquist, just to let everyone know. That was my voice. So yes, the challenge or the competition phase is done.
We can go back
Intermission
to the
phase.
leaderboard and see if.
Yeah, let's go on the leaderboard right now to see how it ended up.
Okay, so it looks like nothing's.
So no one submitted
And
from what we saw.
this makes things interesting, because if exactly 4 people submitted hard, and we said that this problem is quite sure once you submit it and you pass sample test, and now people will fight for that 5th spot. Still, maybe somebody from 2nd or 3rd place will lose both easy and medium.
But they'll still
Then-
be within their point range.
I mean, then you can be overtaken by somebody with challenges. Like 650 points looks enough, but 634 isn't that
Maybe
sure.
not. Yeah, that's definitely within 50 point or like 100 point range of like 5th and 6th right now. So both of those qualify.
I think it's hard to imagine a scenario where Tourist doesn't pass now with 807
Yeah,
just on hand.
807 looks very likely.
So like you mentioned, we're in this like intermission phase here. So are they like writing scripts to generate potential tests, and then taking their code, taking the opponent's code and running their code too?
Now this is a time where still they don't see opponent's codes.
Right.
They can just like read the statement. It's a good time also to read sample tests again and see what is not covered there. During a contest, you shouldn't go through that. You just, if you think about some test and you want to check your solution, you just check that test, right? Now it's good a moment to read all the sample tests to see, oh, actually there is no test with even n. Maybe even n or odd n is something special in this problem.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe we can look at one of the screens. I think we do have access to.
We can see if somebody is working hard with some
Yeah, we
script.
can
But
check it
some
out.
people could just be taking a break also.
Yeah, that's possible. I think tourists can take a break.
Yeah, tourist is probably
You think he's just chilling?
chilling,
You know,
yeah.
he usually just walks around all the time. And,
Oh,
and
yeah, he paces
during the
around.
marathon, yeah. So this one, I think he's a little. He can get a little comfortable, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's see if we can check out a screen, anyone's screen, maybe tourist.
Yeah, I mean,
Potentially-
we can like rotate through.
Yeah, let's rotate through, see what he's up to.
Looks like, yeah, he's not really doing much. He's kind of waiting.
A moment ago we saw a window with code, but now here's just waiting those remaining 2 minutes. And now we see a screen from which you can just double click somebody's score, and from that it will open.
Okay, so
and
this
we
is kinda
see
what you're
indeed
seeing here.
tests. He's ready to copy paste something likely.
This looks like some challenge cases. So the first one looks like a case where like all zeros for the first problem. So that can definitely trip some people up. So we'll see like he finds anybody with that case.
So this is the screen that he'll end up double clicking, and then he can
Likely
start.
he already copy paste
Right.
copied that.
Yeah.
So just Control V remains. Jaeger also just waits for the intermission to end.
Yeah.
Let's see, we got lyrically here. Seems to be
Looks
waiting.
like he's sorted by.
Or she.
She started by what?
I'm not too sure. This was not the right order. Too tight TL. Oh no.
Too,
Is that
too,
too
knowledge,
tight?
too knowledge heavy, I guess. Yeah, the hard problem did require
Yeah, a lot of
knowing
knowledge.
some formulas.
Yeah.
Scott Wu, just waiting for the intermission. It's a part of strategy to know which problem you will start with. You can choose between 250 and 500. Which one do you want to go through first and try to challenge? 250 looks easier to. More people will likely fail 250. On the other hand, more people will try to find mistakes in that one. Well, in 500, if you think somebody has something wrong, you just paste two numbers there and that's it. It's easier to prepare a test, kind of a max test. Plus, do you want to start with the last person in the leaderboard?
All right, Snook having a little fun here. He's opened up like a paint
I
application.
think I usually start by hacking second last person because I know somebody will go just from the bottom of the leaderboard.
You want a
If
little
I
bit
want to
extra
be
time.
a bit faster, then I want to start from second last. Next year, I think
Okay.
we will see people
All right,
starting
So
from third
challenges are
last.
starting.
The 10-minute long challenge phase of the algorithm competition
Challenge
has
succeeds,
begun.
challenge
Looks like
succeeds.
2 people failed challenges already in the first,
Already there's a challenge.
first 10 seconds.
Let's hit the leaderboard right now.
Yeah, let's look
We
at the
can
leaderboard.
see. There we go. Tourist and RNG
They-
right
They
away.
hacked. Yeah.
Yeah.
They might have put in the same.
Yeah, they might have
test.
had in the same ones. So RNG is still not in the top 4.
He still needs a little ways
yeah,
to go.
He still needs at least 2
Oh,
challenges.
there we go.
another one by
Tourist got
Tourist. So
UWI.
Tourist is still getting all these challenges, so he's denying these from lower place people.
He is,
He
he's
has
still-
a lot of points, I guess, so I guess he's fine with taking the risk.
But it makes things a bit less interesting for us and for viewers because if we saw more movement in the leaderboard, that would be exciting. If just tourist takes all the challenges, well, nothing changes in the leaderboard. Some people go
let's
down.
Let's hit Tourist's screen because he's probably just like
Yeah, he's
frantically
probably-
opening up everyone's.
Yeah, he's looking at other people's codes. He's looking at Igor's solution right now, but probably doesn't find a bug.
I think almost nobody just reads the full code. It's about scrolling and seeing if something looks suspicious. If yes, then you can spend 1 more minute thinking about it. But yeah, you don't have time to read and analyze.
Well, we're going to be on with Tourist and Igor after they have completed this match. So maybe we can ask them what did they use, what did they see in the challenge round. It's the RNG.
So most
who had
people
a
are just looking at the 250s. There might be some challenges for the 500. It's a little bit unclear. But nobody's really looking at those right now because I think the 250 has the more obvious candidates for wrong solutions. Mm-hmm. But we can see them transitioning to 500s maybe soon.
Well, UWI had snuck in, right? So, but he got challenged.
Yeah, but he had the successful 1000, so he looks like he's still good.
Okay.
Even if he does fail the 500, like he'll probably still be okay for the top 4.
1,000 pointer is a good one.
So right now, we need 2 more successful submissions by Makoto by RNG, because he needs
RNG is fighting right
70 more points, so just 100, or just Igor failing anything. The hard problem contains computation modulo, and it's always a bit dangerous. Even if you pass that one max test, still maybe somebody subtracts 2 values, and then in some case, if number that you get is smaller than 0, you should add modulo. Maybe in some cases, for some max tests, it doesn't happen. So still, it's not impossible that something will fail there, but not likely.
Yeah, very not likely.
with Igor. He's right on the bubble here. He's in 4th place currently.
Yeah, he wants to make sure he secures his position.
Standard challenge phase lasts 15 minutes during top code round, but this time we have just 10 minutes. There are only 8 participants.
It's actually kind of interesting because in a way, Tourist may have saved Igor by taking those challenges away from RNG.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It is possible. Maybe optimally Tourist should think whether he should indeed challenge, whether he wants the 5th place to have a chance to overtake the 4th place.
But it's all about that competitive spirit, You want to.
Looks like Tourist is looking at the 500s now.
No holds bar.
Yeah.
We see some statistics: 62 wins out of 245, around 25% accuracy. Not so bad.
Yeah, that's pretty high. Yeah, it looks like he went through the 500s and didn't find anything.
Oh, now 1,000.
And again, as we mentioned, Tourist did compete in the marathon finals yesterday, and he's also competing in this algorithm competition. There has never been a winner of both marathon and algo in the same year, so it's a story we're looking out at. We're not, knock on wood for him, but hasn't happened.
I mean, he was close last year.
He was very close.
He
was very close.
Marathon.
Piotr beat him out.
Yeah. Yeah. Looks like there's not too much activity now. But we'll see if system tests will catch anything. So after this ends, we'll run all the solutions against the full test, including the challenge cases. And then more people could still fail from there.
All right, looks like we have about 5 minutes left. Let's take a look at the action. We have people gathering around, waiting for a show here. They got a hot start there with 3 successful challenges.
Every monitor, every screen shows one person's screen.
Yeah,
being
each of those
streamed.
kiosks you see, those are hooked up to the competitor's screen. So as we are flipping through the screens, so can our live audience. So you can circle around, find your favorite competitor or...
First minutes of the contests are usually waiting for people to open some problem for the first time. If you see that somebody opened 1000, that is unusual, you usually start with easy, then everybody goes there just to read the statement or take a photo, because statements aren't public by default. Only when a participant opens a problem, then they see it. It's not that a participant can go through all the problems from the very beginning. Now, in the chat some time ago, I think we posted a link to all the problem descriptions, but here people just go stand next to those screens and wait for somebody to open the problem.
Now, what is this like, do you think, for someone like the couple newbies that we have here, Snuke and UWI, competing at home and, you know, and coming here for the first time, competing live? Do you think there's some, is it that much different for them, do you think? Or is it just like competing at home?
I mean, I don't know. It depends. I think competing in an on-site round could definitely put a lot more pressure.
Right.
Especially when people can see your screen. But like you can't really hear them commentate, like saying anything. But
Yeah.
still, that could be a little bit nerve-wracking.
That's true.
One aspect is that some people complain more about, you know, light, sound, because people are talking in this room. The other is that there's more stress because it's more important competition, but they are not really newbies. They are very experienced in competitive programming already, and they
Well, and
for
then
sure
newbies
attended
is first time at
events.
TCO.
Yeah, so, but it's not that there's a big difference in stress that you feel in TCO versus other on-site competitions that they participated in. So I don't think that either of them should perform much worse just
Right.
because of it.
And UWI's, you know, showing us that he can hang with the big guys. Currently in third place, so we have about 2 minutes and 13 seconds.
Looks like
now.
nothing
Nothing's changed.
happened.
Nothing's
Maybe in
changed.
the very last minute we will see more movement, because for Makoto, I think it might be optimal. Is he 25 points above Scott? No. If Makoto had more points above Scott, in last moment, even if he knows something is correct, it's optimal for him to just take a guess and blindly challenge somebody, whomever, to get a chance to get one place up. But here likely he will not do it. He should hope that somebody from the top will fail one of big problems and he will go one place up.
Well, only really Igor right now. Like, even if one of the top three fail, well, like, at least not the one
Hard could fail.
Yeah, hard could fail.
Just like Arito mentioned, even after this minute 20 is done, the competition is not over. Still not over yet. Their code is going to be run through a system test. It's going to be how many? 1,000 maybe? 100,000?
Hundreds
Like
tests.
hundreds.
Okay, hundreds of
total.
tests. So basically, what just happened is the competitors get first crack at trying to break their fellow competitors' code, and will then be tested against multiple other tests that maybe they didn't think of. So, if any of these problems fail for one of the competitors, they lose all their points for that problem. So, this still could be anyone's game, but it seems like no one can really crack that 500 or find anything that could potentially.
Yeah, challenging one specific case is a little bit harder than like having a lot of system tests to run,
Right.
because like as like problem writers, we can like have a lot of different random cases, and usually that like might just hit one of the wrong edge cases by chance. But contestants have to be a lot more deliberate about like how they break solutions. So that's why we might not be seeing like any challenges, but they still might fail in the later system tests.
We as organizers don't have big penalty from throwing some unnecessary test in the test.
The algorithm competition is now
It's
complete.
over.
The system testing will now be processed and the results
And how long does
announced
this usually
shortly.
take?
It's usually pretty fast, like almost
Especially
immediate.
if there are so few
Yeah,
participants.
there's only 8 participants.
Usually online, you have how many? Like hundreds.
Yeah, but usually that only takes like maybe a couple minutes. at
Okay.
most. So we can look at the leaderboard, I think.
Yeah, let's look at the leaderboard here. I
And
hear
so-
some clapping in the background. The competitors are kind
So it
of
looks like there were some
behind
last
their
minute
desks.
challenges. So like Scott submitted 2 challenges in the
Oh,
last
look at that.
minute. I mean, that's optimal for him because like
He
he
had to
won't
do
drop below 6 right now, but he wants a chance to move past RNG.
Okay.
But given that, RNG should have also
Yeah, but
challenged
given that
blindly.
Scott challenged, then RNG should also challenge.
And this is why Scott didn't blindly challenge a few minutes before the end, because that would give information to Makoto that he should challenge too, because he has more
Yeah,
gap.
I want to do that
behind him.
at the very end.
So what we saw there, there was two challenges that he was just like, all right, I gotta
Yeah,
try to.
just at least try and see. Like, he might not be 100% sure they're not correct, but he just chose like the ones he most likely thought were incorrect.
Right. So now he's just crossing his fingers that hopefully someone can bump him up to that
Yeah.
top 4 spot. All right, so we are just currently now waiting for the system tests to be complete. Once they are, we will hit back to the leaderboard to see where everyone stands. So, what about you guys as far as problem writers? Did you have any inspirations or like, are you like, is this going to be good enough for this type of competition type thing? You're like, this is hard enough? Or you say you go through testers, right? So
Yeah.
you tested his problem, and so you guys kind of work together like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit. It's not that problems differ that much from a standard round. Maybe here they should be indeed challenging. We shouldn't allow for just a set of 3 easy problems that somebody will solve in 30 minutes. But other than that, they are top coder style problems. Some topics appear more often here than in other platforms. It's some flavor of the platform. But it's nothing that special. Of course, we hope for some quality problems. So we can't just put it out of the hat. That we can't magically come up with something completely new and different because this is TCO. We try our best, and I think we will be joined by somebody in a moment.
Yeah, we will. I think once the results are revealed, we'll have a couple of
So
competitors.
we'll
2 or 3
see if
people.
problems were nice.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
I'm
see
actually going
what
to
their
turn it
opinions
over
are.
to you once they come over. So you guys are going to be
we can
the
ask
solos. You guys are going to be great. But until then, we're going to take a short break. We will be back once the scores are finalized, and we'll see which top 4 are going to move on to the algorithm finals. Stay tuned.
we go. Time to find out which of the top 4 are moving on to the finals. Let's play that leaderboard. All right, congratulations to Tourist, Lyrically, UWI, and Igor, all moving on to the finals. We'll see you all then. Great job, everyone.
Hello guys, congratulations for advancing to the finals. First, what do you think about problems, Tourist?
I think the problems were nice. Actually, I liked all of them. I think all of them were like the old style, maybe. Yeah, and also it's a bit weird. Maybe it's not ethical to say that, but I think that they were pretty close to ACRush style problems, which is good in itself. But it's a bit weird that RNG 58 didn't qualify, so it's a sad thing. But anyway, I like all of them. Yeah.
Indeed, I would say that Makoto should participate nicely with these problems.
Well, maybe he doesn't participate in ACRush round, so that's why.
Oh yeah, he doesn't actually participate. What about you, Igor? What did you think of the problems?
Well, I still can't really talk about the hard problem because I don't know the solution. I only saw some magic by UVI who submitted just like recurrent formula. Yes, but otherwise they were pretty nice, like easy is traditionally tricky in the semifinals.
Is that a good thing or not?
I don't know, but I fail for it each time. At least I know that I need to check it afterwards. So, and 3 people didn't know that and failed. And the medium was very interesting, but a little bit on the easy side for medium.
For me as well, I guess.
Oh yeah, you solved it very fast.
Yeah, we both solved it fast.
We can open the leaderboard. See? Or maybe not.
Oh yeah.
In a moment we'll get the leaderboard. Oh, we don't have it.
Okay.
But I think for easy, only Makoto got it right for the first time, and other accepted submissions were all
I
resubmitted.
think lyrically also got it for the
we
first
were
time,
on the
just slowly.
Oh yeah.
But Lyrically opened hard first, so when he moved to the easy, he knew it was tricky.
Okay,
By the submissions and all.
indeed, a bit easier because of that.
Do you think there's any interesting strategy with opening the 1000 first? Like, what do you think of that strategy?
I guess in this round it didn't matter too much.
Yeah,
Because
using a
all the
solver
problems
everything.
were solvable. Otherwise, it would matter a lot.
Did you know maybe medium or something similar before a contest? You quite quickly solve it. For 80s, nice score.
I recall something similar, but I don't remember what exactly.
Well, I guess at some point all problems become somewhat similar. There was always some other problems that close to it, but yes, it's more or less standard idea that there is something exponential going on, and you like, just like with Hanoi Towers, for example, you do something, then one operation, and then do that something again.
Yeah, but it's true that actually I didn't really prove my solution because like, it looked correct. So I just stress tested it after submitting.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah. The
overall,
samples were
like,
pretty weak on that one, right?
the samples were not too strong. Yeah, that's correct.
Well, there was one meaningful sample, 7.5, but
Oh, it's 5, so it could be wrong. But anyway,
For sure you should check for maybe overflow, stuff like that. Maybe it's good to also just go once again through your code after submitting.
yeah, but I had like 10 lines. I don't know.
I'm not saying that it would take 15 minutes to go through that code. It's once again. In medium, we quite late changed one thing in the problem because we were worried that there was no checker because the solution is unique, and we quite late realized that if you test or like batch test
You see
something,
that there's
like
no
that, you see.
There's a checker.
So it
So
was
we
very
added a
late
checker.
that we added it. Do you agree that it's a good thing to do?
That's the right thing to do. But otherwise, it was still like suspicious. You say that output any permutation, like it looked like there shouldn't be too many of them. I don't know.
Maybe one can say that there is some lemma. If samples doesn't show
The
something, then
2019 Top Coder Open First to Finish Competition Finals is now underway. Good luck to all the competitors.
Like all the competitors.
I got feedback earlier that nobody can hear anything we say once they come sound. Something is in speakers. What was I saying?
but if something is not showing up in the
That it
sample,
doesn't exist.
well, I recently solved several problems from Timus. The old problem, there is like was 2 or 3 problems where there are impossible cases, but there's then.
But would that happen in Top Coder where you have no feedback other than samples in the contest?
Well, that's another thing.
Maybe only in easy, because we all know that easy is tricky.
Yeah, only these.
But hard
Well,
was
yes,
like
anything past easy samples this time around.
the hard problem was the least tricky because like probably if you pass the cases 50, 20, and million, should be correct.
I wanted to add test 1-1 as well.
Oh yeah,
And
there was one.
we
one I
added
think.
that. There
Yeah,
was one.
we added that.
Yeah, because actually my solution first.
Th-
and
there
then
wasn't
time.
yesterday.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, you would have failed.
I guess
You're
I would.
welcome.
I guess I would have realized it anyway, but maybe after a submission.
It's an obvious edge case to check. Just it would be a bit strange if somebody indeed missed it. Do we really want to check that in hard?
I would say that in general, when I set problems, I tend to exclude such cases from the problem. For example,
Exclude?
yeah, I think that in this problem
Or like
I would
with the
just make
constraints.
m at least 2, because when it's m equal to 1, you remove edges 1, 2, 2, 3, and so on to m minus 1 m, but none of them exist, so it's a bit weird.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That would be also possible, because if we add test with just n equal to 1, then why at all do we have it if
Yeah,
we
I mean,
say this is
actually
the
doesn't
output?
make too much sense. If you include the edge case and give it in the samples, I mean, no difference.
So maybe indeed next time we could just say n is at least 2.
Yeah, next time.
I guess.
Well, if I recall correctly, last time in the semis I somewhat failed for the only edge case. Yes, 1100, which was the only case my solution for easy.
Was it in Top Coder Open?
Yes, last year in the semi-finals. I mean, I submitted, but because I submitted, I missed the cut.
With Top Coder rules, it hurts very much to resubmit. Also, like, especially in first minutes of opening a problem, score decreases very quickly. It isn't linear.
I think at the start it decreases quite slowly, then it starts to...
I think
Yes,
it,
there is some
I
kind of
think it
threshold.
isn't that easy.
Yeah,
I think it decreases very quickly in first moments, then slowly.
No, it's
I think
kind of
It's very slow at the beginning,
like
so you can read the problems.
Okay.
I think it's easy to get to 49.99.
Okay, so slow, fast, and slow, something like that.
yes.
I had a script a year ago, I remember, to tell me if I need that many points, after what time I should submit, something like that, because there is a chance that leaderboard will tell me I'll need this many points, but I didn't use it eventually.
It's actually fun. I think that no other platform uses formulas like this. I think all other platforms use like Perforce linear, right?
Yes, or max time
Just
plus
max time,
RUX
yeah, but
submissions.
TopCore has some formula which has worked like for 20 years almost like. But I think it's not it's pretty good actually because
It works.
like
So,
just
at
like
least
the
we
racing
get
formulas.
used to it. Anyway.
I don't know, maybe we're used to it, but I think it's reasonable. Like in the middle, it's like the most important thing. This thing.
Probably.
I'm not sure.
Maybe it isn't easy to understand for newcomers, but on the other hand, why would you want to understand that? You just want to quickly solve
I
problems.
have no idea about the formulas. I know that probably it's slow, quick, slow.
Yeah, it's slow,
I
fast.
don't know the formulas. Maybe I'm not a newcomer, you know.
I know that it involves some power, but this is how I know.
Yeah, I think it was described in the
Yeah, there's
website
some like webpage with it.
I think
It's, like,
somebody
pretty
knows
complicated.
those rules.
I mean, yes, I recall that I read sometime like 5 years ago or 10 years ago about all these formulas behind topcoder scoring, topcoder rating, and stuff. I'm not even sure they are reachable at the moment on the
It
website.
happens automatically, so organizers also don't have to know those rules.
Would we reach a state where only some kind of tricky code would know what is the formula?
We would never.
It would be possible, but then you could reverse engineer that and
If you
submit a
could,
lot of times.
if you can do that.
We also have a lot of data, right?
Yes, we have a lot
We have
of
a lot of
data.
data. We can definitely reconstruct it.
Any more thoughts about the competition? What was going on during the challenge phase? Did you prepare some tests in advance?
Well, for me, like before the challenge phase started, I knew that I need, if I manage to challenge both ACRush and the other snuke solutions, then I would be able to pass with only medium. So my target was to quickly challenge, blindly challenge both of them, but well, I was too slow.
Which one did you open first?
I have gone for ACRush.
Okay, me too. Sorry.
You didn't get any of the.
But so RNG went for snuke, I guess.
Yeah, RNG went for snoop. I think in the first like 10 seconds.
Blind as well,
Yeah,
because
and
it
you
was
went
very
for
fast.
ace.
After, yeah, so
You and
we did-
RNG were like first 5 seconds
Yeah,
or
first 5
something.
Yeah,
seconds.
exactly.
I hope that you realize that you don't need any of the challenges.
So what? What if everything fails? I don't know. Who knows, right? I can't risk, but in general, yeah. I saw that 241 and 238 are suspicious. So probably
Oh, yeah,
cannot
they're
solve
very fast
solve
missions.
the problem correctly in that for that many points. And then I also saw the code of UWI who had 170, but his code was too short. I didn't even actually read it. But
This is too short for it.
Yeah.
What is your like strategy for like looking at deciding which submissions to challenge? Like you said, like score.
Those which look suspicious, nice.
Okay.
If you can scroll through the chat or actually the that place where they say who submitted what, you could see maybe if somebody batch tested something
Yeah.
or it was last second submission,
Sometimes,
but it's hard
sometimes
to
do that. Sometimes do that. Last second submissions are visible in the chat, like after the end of the coding phase, right? And about the testing, I don't know. I usually scroll through the last like 5-10 minutes to see the submissions if they like, were not tested properly, then maybe they're suspicious.
Also, most people nowadays just test in their
locally.
Yeah,
IC,
that's also
yes.
true.
I mean, for the first problem, it's probably not really feasible because you likely have some other correct solution that is not covered as examples. So you'd better batch testing it, yes, but otherwise.
Did you test till the last minute of a contest your solution, your three solutions or not?
I had stress tests for all three, like with 13 minutes to go. So I don't know. I wasn't doing much. I was looking at how it ran, and also I was rereading the medium problem because maybe I understood something correctly, but not too intensively. It looked good.
Yegor, did you try hard till the last minute? or
Oh, I
something else?
mean, I stopped trying like 8 minutes before the end of content because I decided that even if I came up with some algorithm, I wouldn't be able to like.
If you
do
have
it
some
in time.
pre-written codes for modular operations,
I have, yes. But anyway, it's like I don't know how to come up with a formula that.
I would maybe also try googling that.
Yeah.
I did some googling at some point.
Yeah,
some
you
point.
did
I did some as well, but
I knew that their formula, like the number of ways.
But did you know that
Exists?
the formula with products, like size 1 times size 2?
Yeah, no, I didn't know that. I knew that it existed, and I knew that there was a problem which used it.
It was harder for me as a tester because I knew that the formula exists, but I knew a harder formula that involves binomial coefficients, something
Okay, no.
more direct from proof or
I know
code.
that the simple formula exists, but I didn't remember it.
I didn't know that the simple formula
You
exists.
didn't know the formula?
The harder one, yes. The easier one, no.
You didn't know. Okay. But the intended solution was using that formula? No?
Yeah.
I think we don't know a solution without the easy formula.
Yeah.
With product
Oh,
size.
so your hard formula is not applicable,
The
right?
hard formula doesn't help, or we don't know if it helps in any meaningful way.
I see.
Because that one is harder in terms of what sizes do with each other. I could solve this problem in polynomial time, but that's it. Maybe some FFT would speed this up.
Yeah. So I heard RNG did try FFT.
But only if it's fast enough, right?
Yes. Well, the limit of 1 million is...
It's on the border. I'm not sure about the limit actually because I think that if you want, so you didn't have any solution to FFT, right?
We didn't.
But in general, like, what complexity are you aiming at? So I think that it should be like 10 to the power of 5 or 10 to the power of 7. I'm not sure about that. But in general, 10 to the power of 6 is
linear.
borderline of FFT. So it's not the best choice, I think. But
The intended solution anyway, at least mine, it is 1 million times the logarithm from inverse modulo. So it's anyway not something small. FFT isn't that smaller than this.
you can find the inverses in
Oh yeah, you can find all the inverses in linear time.
We can. I'm saying that this passed easily, like in half of a second. So also FFT is of the same magnitude,
see,
you know?
I see, but yeah, of course, the module division has much smaller constant, right? So I think that when you have 10 to the power of 7, then modular divisions of that number, of that magnitude, are okay, and 50 is not, and both of these facts are quite clear, actually. So, I don't know. Maybe 5 million. I don't know.
If I chose constraints for this problem, I think I would go with 500,000 just to make FFT feasible if something thinks about
That's
it.
also work. That also work. But then if you have the solution with FFT with like n log square,
Oh yeah.
There is always something dangerous.
yeah, correct.
Any final remarks? Yes?
Thanks for problems. I guess you were both.
Yeah. So
you
we
were the
soft
tester?
wrote 200 and 500, and I wrote 1000.
What?
We soft wrote the 250 and 500.
This off-road,
Yeah, and then I wrote the one.
and you wrote the one.
And I was just a
He
tester.
was a tester,
Anyway,
but he has some
thank you
other
for preparing the
problems.
problems. I like them.
We're happy everything went fine and that you like the problems.
Well, problems were good enough for me to advance, so I like them as well.
Yeah, so you're always happy with that.
So see you in 2 days in the finals.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Congratulations again. Yeah, we're done.
Good afternoon from rainy Houston, where TCO is underway right now. Welcome to our viewers from near and far. My name is Nate Brocker. I'm a analytics solution manager with Topcoder. I have the pleasure of getting to introduce our guests for this session that we've put together especially for our data science community at Topcoder. It should be an interesting and informative session that we have with AWS, specifically AWS Marketplace. Today, for our data science community members, we'll be talking about listing models with AWS. Why is this something that we want to talk to you about? Why have we prioritized this for a live stream? Well, we think it's a great opportunity actually for our community to take the skills that they've been sharpening through Topcoder in the challenges that you participate in and benefit in new ways from them. We're going to let our guests tell you a bit about why you as a community member might want to consider getting familiar with and building models for AWS Marketplace and how really easy it is to do this. We have with us Kanchan Waikar, a senior solutions architect with AWS, along with Joseph Shi, a marketplace solutions architect at AWS. Thank you both for being here today.
Sure, our pleasure. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We'll get started actually by letting them explain a bit more about AWS Marketplace and then move after that into a time of Q&A with them. So for all our viewers that are tuning in, feel free to send us your questions online through Twitch and Facebook, and we'll get as many of them as we can at the end here. Without further ado, Kanchan and Joseph, take it away.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Kanchan Waikar, and I'm a solutions architect from AWS Marketplace for Machine Learning team. And today, it is really my pleasure to be able to talk to you about how can you monetize machine learning models that you have developed by listing them in AWS Marketplace. And I have Joseph, who would be talking as well. So let me get started. At Amazon, we have been doing machine learning for a really long time. And things such as recommendations engine, paths that optimize robotic picking routes, demand forecasting, capacity planning, these are some of the examples of machine learning as well. Apart from that, we have also been focused on enabling our customers to use third-party products as well. And AWS Marketplace is precisely for that. In AWS Marketplace, we can find, buy, test, and deploy third-party software. It contains an extensive selection of third-party products, including AMI-based solutions, as well as SageMaker-compatible machine learning models and algorithms. And those are the ones that we'll be focusing on. It is extremely easy to deploy products from AWS Marketplace, and the billing of these third-party products deployed from AWS Marketplace is consolidated into your AWS billing. And there are flexible consumption and contract mechanisms available with AWS Marketplace as well. So why should you consider listing your machine learning models in AWS Marketplace? Well, there are multiple reasons behind it. One of the reasons is to actually monetize your machine learning models. Customers are really interested in using the pre-built machine learning models for accelerating their machine learning workloads. And that's where you can come into picture. You can take your machine learning model, you can list it in AWS Marketplace so that AWS customers can discover and deploy them using Amazon SageMaker. The second reason why you should list is to ensure that you're protecting your IP while listing. So by listing your machine learning model in in AWS Marketplace for machine learning, you get to protect your IP. Your customer, they're not going to be able to see what is packaged within your Docker container. And the third reason is to really reach new customers. I mean, you have already solved the problem by creating a machine learning model. Why not reach new customers and let them use it within a secure environment within AWS account? And these are some of the reasons why you would want to list your machine learning models within AWS Marketplace. Next, we'll be diving deep into the process of how can you become an AWS Marketplace seller, how can you package your machine learning model using Docker, and then how do you publish the same in form of a AWS Marketplace listing. And I'll be handing over to Joseph, who would dive deep into the entire process and show us step by step how to go about the same.
Thank you, Kanchan. Hi, so my name is Joseph Shi. I'm with AWS as Solution Architect, and we're just going to go through these 4 modules here. We have 4 modules. The first one will talk about how to sign up as a seller, and then how to package and prepare your models for selling, and then how to create that product in the console and how to submit and test it. So we're going to take you from having a model that's ready to go, a model that you have trained on, and taking it all the way to the selling process. So we'll start with the first module now. To sign up as a seller, it's a very simple process of going to aws.amazon.com/marketplace, and then there's a link at the top of the page where you could click to sell in Marketplace. Once you click that, it should take you to the AWS Marketplace Management Portal. Under the products and machine learning section, if you click that, it'll take you to how to sign up, and it's a very simple process of picking a unique business name, reading the terms and conditions, and clicking the agree button, and now you are a seller. So that was pretty quick. But there's one more step you need to do if you want to sell machine learning models on Amazon, on AWS Marketplace, delivering via the Amazon SageMaker. So you'll need to send a request to the team to get you whitelisted. It'll take about a day or 2 business days, and that'll get you whitelisted and ready to sell. While that's happening, you could go over to the settings page to fill in your public profile. That's where you'll upload your logo. You can also start the process of inputting your tax information. If you want to list free models, then this is not necessary, but if you want to list paid models, you'll want to fill in the tax information to do that. And to sell models, you need to have an entity in either the US or the EU, and you also need to have a bank account in the US. And you can also sign up as a sole proprietor individual to do so. Let's continue on with the actual packaging. So we're going to go a little deep now into how Amazon SageMaker works with your model, how it'll orchestrate that. The Amazon SageMaker is a fully managed service that allows customers to build, train, and then deploy their models. We're going to focus on your models that you've already trained and the models that are ready to go. So we will deploy these models, and there's 2 ways to deploy. One is through real-time inference, where you will send requests to the model, and the model will reply, and the other one is batch, where you do it in batch. So the overall concept of how Amazon SageMaker works is your models are actually inside a Docker container. If you're familiar with Docker containers, it's all your artifacts, all your models should be packaged in Docker containers, and you can add a web server because Amazon SageMaker will pass data via the HTTP protocol to your container, and your container should respond with the prediction back on that request. So if you could package your model, all the logic, all the artifacts into this container, this Docker container, and then you add a web server that can respond to HTTP requests, then you're pretty much it. You're done. That's what it takes to get your model into the marketplace. So some prerequisites before we do this quick walkthrough is you obviously need a model that you own and you can package into a Docker image. And you also need Docker on your development environment, and you also need AWS CLI installed and with the right permissions to work with your AWS account. And earlier we mentioned the whitelisting process. That needs to be done before we can take some of the steps in this walkthrough. So we'll look at building a Docker file. If you're familiar with Docker, the Docker file is like a recipe of how your Docker image will be built. And then we'll install a web server. We'll also put the model inside. We'll use a mock model in our walkthrough and put that inside the Docker container behind the server, inside the model. And then we will create and test our Docker image locally. So we'll start with a Docker file here in the development environment, in the context directory. And we're going to just start building our Docker file. We'll start with a Ubuntu 18.04 image, and we'll build on top of that. The first thing we're going to do is add a web server. In our example here, we're using a Python Flask server. However, you can use whatever server you want and you're familiar with, so you can install Apache on your server instead of Flask. But in our example, we're just going to add some commands to install that Flask onto the image. Now we'll need to create a Flask script. The Flask script will be what's powering the Flask server inside your container. And we'll need to define 2 endpoints. The first endpoint we need to define for Amazon SageMaker to be able to use this container is the ping endpoint. The /ping endpoint should respond with a response code of 200. That's the HTTP response code of 200 to say, hey, this container is ready to do inference. We can start making predictions. The second endpoint that SageMaker will hit is the invocations endpoint. The invocations endpoint is the meat of it. It's where all the inference is going to be happening. So SageMaker will be sending all the input that the customer will want to make predictions on to this endpoint. It's going to be a post request on /invocations, and this is where we want to add our model, where we want to respond with the predictions. So for our demonstration purposes, we're going to use a mock model. We're going to assume we have this string here, and the string is a result of some training that we have. And it's a simple regular expression that looks for 7s and 9s, and we want to go ahead and include this file into our Docker file too. So we'll go ahead and add some lines to our Docker file to include this fake mock string, the artifact we have. So we'll go back to our server script, and we'll continue defining our invocations endpoint. Here we'll add a line to read in the artifact that we just created, the regular expression. So we'll read in the regular expression file. We'll add in another line to read in what SageMaker will pass to you in the request. So we'll read the input from the post request body, and then we'll compare the two and respond whether it's lucky or not in a JSON format here. We're going to go back to our Docker file and include this web server script. Now we need to write a serve program. When you run your Docker container, you execute a program in the Docker container. So that's very similar how SageMaker will work. SageMaker, when it runs your container, it will execute the serve program. So you want to have a serve program that can get your container ready. So it's a perfect place for us to write a bash script to get the Flask server running. So when your container runs in SageMaker, SageMaker will execute this file, and this file will start the server, the HTTP server that's inside your container. So we'll include this serve file in the path of our image, so make sure that that can be executed. And we're ready to build. So we'll issue the docker command, docker build, on the context that we're in right now, and we'll just tag this Docker image with the tag my inference model here. Once that build is complete, we can run this Docker container inside our development environment. So we'll make sure to publish ports 8080, because that's where SageMaker will be sending those pings and where it will be sending those invocation calls. And then we will make sure the serve is executed. So on the last line there, you see serve is being executed. So that will start our web server. Once it's running and ready, we can start pinging it. So we'll use curl to curl the development environment itself, where the container is already actively listening to 8080. And we should get a 200 response code here, and we do. And then if you curl the post requests to the invocations endpoint, you should get back what you were expecting, and we will pass in hello world 7 here as a test string to see if we get what we expected back, and we do. Since we're ready to go, we can go and stop that container. So the next step is to create the product. So a product in the Amazon SageMaker, we call it a model package. A model package contains an image, the image of your model, and also any artifacts that's needed. In our case, our artifacts are embedded inside the model, so we're just going to make a model package based off of our image. The process of creating a model package requires that you take the image and you upload it to Amazon ECR, Amazon Elastic Container Registry, and that's a fully managed Docker container, a fully managed Docker registry, and you can upload that directly using Docker, and once your image is there, we can upload some test data into S3, Amazon S3, and we store some test data. After we validate the model with the test data and we do some scanning, you can have your model package ready to go and list it. So we're going to just go through some of the steps in this process here. So we'll start noting that it's important that we have our entire environment in US East. Make sure that your console is US East, that you're uploading to US East 2. Sorry, US East 2. That's the Ohio region. Thank you, Kanchan. So here we'll run a command This will log your development environment Docker instance into Amazon ECR in US East 2. Once you're logged in, we're going to create a repository in Amazon ECR. In Amazon ECR, we're going to create a repository called My Inference Model, the same name we gave to the image. Once we create it, we also need to have the full name of the ECR location. So that consists of your account name. We have a fake account name here. Account ID 0123456789. And then we have the region, and we also have the name of the repository. So that consists, that's what consists when we talk about the full name. And we'll need to tag our image that we just created with that full name so that we can just do a Docker push command, which will push that image, upload that image to that ECR location that we just created. Next, we're going to have to create some test data. So to create the model package, again, we need to create some test data so we could validate that it's running successfully. So here we will create 2 test files. We'll also create a S3 bucket to upload it to, and then we'll go and upload it with a few commands with the AWS CLI. Now we're going to shift gears and go into the browser and look at how we can finish the steps in the console, the Amazon SageMaker console. So again, we want to make sure we're in the Ohio region, which is US East 2. And we'll head over to the SageMaker console. The Amazon SageMaker console, you'll want to go to the model packages, because we're creating our model packages. We'll specify a name for the model package. And this is also where we will reference that full name, your account ID, the region, and also the name of the repository that we uploaded that image just moments ago to. So once you have that, we don't have any other artifacts. We'll go ahead and just specify which instance type it's compatible. On the next page, we'll make sure we keep publish option as yes, and that will make sure we validate this model. And this is where we'll need an IAM role. An IAM role is a role that the SageMaker will use to access the data we uploaded to the test buckets. So in the validation profile, we just have to edit the JSON a little bit. So specify where the input data is, where the test data we uploaded to, so the bucket name. We also want to specify where the output should be going to, and then the formats that we are expecting. We'll create the model package. Once it's created, it'll go into an in-progress status. And in this step, it will take your data and try to pass the data to your container image inside SageMaker and see if you can pull out the response and then put it back into S3. And when it's done, you'll get a completed status and where you can now go to S3 and look at the output. The next step is to submit your listing to AWS Marketplace. And what we're going to do next is we're going to submit that listing, and then we're going to subscribe to our own listing, and then we're going to sign off and publish. To submit your listing, once your model package is complete, you can select it, and in the drop-down menu, publish new ML Marketplace listing, and go ahead and select that. That should take you to the AWS Marketplace management portal. In the management portal, you will need to fill in your product description. You'll need to fill in any usage instructions you have. We have a set of best practices that are available to ensure that customers have what they need, such as what's the input format that your model is expecting, what's the output format that they should be expecting back. So those best practices are available online,
designers,
and we can make that available also after this.
Stage.
So when you're done, you'll want to submit your
Designers
listing.
to the floor.
Once you submit your listing, you can follow the progress of your publishing in the management portal. When it gets to the phase of test product, you can now see your test product in the AWS Marketplace. Only your account will be able to see it. It's published in a limited listing state.
All right.
And so we're going to go ahead and click Go to Stage Product.
Other matchups for RUX.
And we're going to continue to subscribe to our own listing, because what we want to do is actually subscribe to that model package in the marketplace so that we can test if everything
Next up,
works.
we have I Am Infinite versus Con Lin.
Great. So we're going to test
Next
our
up, we
stage
have Robbie
product
June versus Universal.
So we're going to go back to SageMaker
We
after
then
we
have
subscribe,
Yoki
and
versus
we're going to create
LOI.
models. We need a model to be created
Finally, we
from
have
our
I Am
subscription.
Tom
our
versus
subscribed model
Arianto
package.
Oko versus
We got some live
Jack
competition going on behind
Mania.
us, so apologies for the additional commentary
Good
in the
luck,
background.
competitors.
All
We'll
right.
just give them a second to. Yeah, sounds like they wrapped up.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you. So we'll need to create a model based off of the subscription we just subscribed to, our own product that it's in the limited state. So we'll go to models and create a model, and we'll specify a name for the model, and then we will need to choose the model package from the AWS Marketplace that we published in the limited state. We'll select the model package from that stage product and click create. With this model, we can now deploy our model in two different ways. The first way, earlier I mentioned, was batch, and the second way is a real time where you stand up this endpoint that will continue to be ready to make predictions on. So the first test we're going to do is a batch. So we'll go to batch transform job and create a batch job. We'll need to specify a job name, and then we'll select the model that we just created. We want to select the instance type that we want to use. If you want to scale up, you can change the instance type to something bigger. You can also scale out by increasing your instance count. And the SageMaker will take care of orchestrating all those containers. You don't have to worry about load balancing, splitting the jobs. SageMaker will take care of all of that for you. Again, just like the validation, we want to specify where the data is. So if you have a bunch of data, make sure it's in a bucket somewhere, and then here you want to specify where that bucket is, the path to those files, and then you want to specify the output where you want the results to go. Once that's done, you can hit create job, and when the progress status changes from in progress to complete, that means your job should have completed all the data input that you had. And if you go to S3 where you specify the output, you should be able to find your results there in the S3 bucket. Now we're going to test the endpoints. The endpoints, again, is an API that you can stand up, and you can reach your endpoint over the internet using HTTP. It's a REST API. So we're going to create an endpoint now. Here we're going to give it a name and also create a new endpoint configuration. In the endpoint configuration, we want to select the model moments ago we created based off the model package that we subscribed to. We'll add the model, and then we can click edit to here, again, change the instance type if you want to scale up, or increase the instance count if you want to scale out. There's also an option to enable elastic inference. Elastic inference allows you to take advantage of GPUs to accelerate your models. That's only if your model supports that. So you can optionally enable that. We're just going to create an endpoint configuration and also create our endpoint. And once our endpoint goes from creating to end service, we are ready to make calls on it from anywhere. So in our example, we will use AWS CLI from our development environment where we were using to build it, and we'll just run a command, invoke endpoint command with the AWS CLI. You can do this yourself with a simple HTTP call. However, you will need to sign your requests using AWS Signature 4 to make sure it's authenticated requests. So, but here we're just going to use the CLI, and we're going to simply say the endpoint name is the endpoint name we specified, the input file and the output file, and what we get back is what we expected. Now we're ready to publish, and the only step you have to do now is go back to the portal, click that big orange button, sign off and publish, and then in a few days, that should go ahead and be live in the marketplace. To close up, I'd like to point out a few key points that are important to the AWS Marketplace when it comes to Amazon SageMaker products. Your model that you've developed, that you've trained, are your intellectual property and are protected. How that works is your container is never accessible by the customer itself. When the customer subscribes, they are only accessing your model through SageMaker. So SageMaker will handle all the orchestration. They don't have direct access to your IP. Your customer will also be getting the bill on their AWS bill, so that's a benefit for them to consolidate that. You'll get reporting in the management portal, and then we also provide go-to-market resources to help you. And there's also the capability of setting up private offers if you have relationships with a customer that you want to give them a special offer for. And with that, if you have questions, please message in.
Send them in.
Send them in.
Please.
And then to get started, all you have to do is go to aws.amazon.com/marketplace and click that link at the top to sell your listings.
Great. Thank you so much, Kanchan and Joseph. I really just in listening to this, hearing the similarities of process between what you as community members do all the time when you submit to Top Coder challenges to what it takes to put a model to list it on AWS Marketplace. There are clearly some similarities from how you build and train models to how you Dockerize it and submit it. So we hope that some of that resonates with you, and that you might consider giving this a look as another opportunity, a way to monetize the work that you've been doing. Just had a few questions for you guys as I'm thinking through this. If I'm an existing Top Coder community member who, say, has a few models that I've already built, is there a limit to the types of models that I can submit? Say, for example, if I have a distributed algorithm, is that something I can just put up on AWS Marketplace and it'll run just fine?
Definitely, yeah. Distributor algorithms are supported by AWS Marketplace as well. And I would also recommend you to enable checkpointing to ensure that the customers can also benefit from the managed spot pricing, because that can also be utilized with AWS Marketplace algorithms.
You bring up pricing. Is pricing entirely set by the person listing their model on the site, or is it sort of any kind of guidance or recommendations from AWS in that process?
Absolutely. So the pricing is actually set by you. So if you're listing a model, you would decide what kind of pricing you want to apply. And to even extend that further, there are certain situations where you might want to provide that model to a specific customer, let's say an enterprise customer, for a longer duration for a specific contract. And that's where private offers come into picture as well. So by listing your model in AWS Marketplace, you also get that additional way for enabling private offers for specific enterprise customers.
Great. One of the scenarios that I could picture for a Top Coder community member who wants to list their model with AWS is maybe they've posted the model and they've had a few people who have decided to buy it. If I wanted to kind of learn from how the customer is using my model and maybe see kind of how the model runs with their data, is there any kind of way to do that? Are there limitations in that sense?
Yeah, so there are limitations there. So the goal here from our AWS customer point of view is to ensure that their data remains secure.
Yeah.
Which is why whenever any third-party container from AWS Marketplace gets launched, it gets launched in a network isolated environment, which means it has no internet access, which literally means that the sellers or the person who is listing their model in AWS Marketplace, they cannot learn anything from customers' data.
Great. We had a session earlier, a master class that was kind of customer facing, where we talked about how customers can take the models that they find on AWS and sort of form ensembles. They can call on multiple of them and kind of process the data so they get the ideal results from that.
Yeah, that's a great point here as well, right? Not all of the not everybody has got a great data science team which can solve every problem, and even if they do, they probably don't have the data which is required for solving that particular problem, which is why it is crucial for us to help them by listing these machine learning models in AWS Marketplace, so that they can use these machine learning models for solving their big picture problems using ensemble models within their applications.
If I'm listing a model on AWS for sale, is there a limit to can I form ensemble models myself and list those?
Well, it's really up to you how you want to create that Docker container. If that Docker container needs to use multiple models, it needs to embed all of that inside the Docker image, and that's what you list.
So no external APIs that I can call on with my model?
No.
For that? Okay.
So your boundary is literally limited to the Docker image, and it has no internet access. So whatever, even the libraries that you need or the serialized model weights, they all need to be part of the Docker image.
Got it. So speaking of Docker images, are there any limits to the types of models that you can support within Docker images on AWS?
So whatever you can package within Docker image.
Anything goes within a Docker container. Cool. Very good. Can you talk a bit about the maybe the verticalized or horizontalized areas that people build models in? Where are you seeing a lot of models being built?
Sure. So it really depends upon the consumer, right? So we have so many industries which are looking for solutions. There is oil and gas industry, there is a manufacturing industry, there is construction industry, and there are also these domains, right? Like or even verticals such as computer vision. There are so many problems in computer vision which are still needs to be solved, right? So if you are able to solve those problems, if you are able to create a model for solving those problems, customers are definitely going to benefit from it.
Absolutely, yeah. So we know our community is incredibly creative, very ingenious in finding ways to solve problems. So I encourage you guys to take a look at the models that are currently listed on AWS. Come up with ideas of areas where there's maybe a space that you think there's value that you can provide and add, and consider adding your models there. Thank you all for just this excellent session that you're able to give to us. Topcoder is working really closely with AWS these days, and we thought that this would be a great way to just add value to the work that you're already doing, where you can consider listing models in a very similar fashion to what you're doing with Topcoder with AWS. So thank you both so much. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming out here today.
Thank you, and it's our pleasure to be part of the Topcoder 2019 here. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, that's all from us today. Signing off from rainy Houston. You all have a good day.